Hey, you beautiful people, Kamina the Koach here, coming back at you. Sorry, I wasn't all the way ready. Sorry. So, I think I've talked about something like this before, but with the big jump in the membership in my Americans of Color Teaching Abroad group, I've really felt the need to do this video. And while I understand that things are quite hectic in the United States, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So if you haven't seen my other video, why I'm considering moving back to the United States, why I'm considering repatriating after a decade of living and working abroad, you can see some of my takes on that. Now, the thing is, with asking me what my opinion is, for licensed teachers, it's going to be very different. And for those who are contractors and nurses and other professions that want to work and live abroad, everybody's going to have a different perspective. Everybody's going to have a different perspective. So to message me and ask me directly what my opinion is probably not going to give you much perspective. It's just going to give you Kamina's perspective. So I advise that you join either overseas jobs for Black Americans or Americans of color teaching abroad and ask the group so that you can get more perspective, so you can get a bit bigger picture. Because certainly my opinion and my experience is just that. It's just my opinion and it's just my experience. One thing I have learned in my time living abroad, let me lock this light exposure. One thing I've learned in my time living abroad is more money doesn't necessarily equal a better, more peaceful, more easygoing time. So again, it just depends on what your purpose is for being overseas. But I've lived some really uncomfortable places that paid really, really well. And it was a very uncomfortable experience that I wouldn't care to relive. Additionally, though you feel like the United States political situation is just dun dun dun, there is a trend in the world where the whole world is going from, this is my right, by the way, like, wait, is it, which? Everyone is moving from relatively liberal to conservative. Everyone, and people say it's a result of the United States. It's really not. It was happening before. It was happening during the Obama era. It has been a gradual progression that Americans don't pay attention to because we're in our American bubble. So for those of us who live abroad, we've probably seen it. But so I guess aside from maybe Canada, the rest of the world is doing this. And like I said, we're so wrapped up in our American bubble and our woe is me, it couldn't possibly get worse. We are not observing what's going on in the rest of the world. And what's very interesting is I had someone yesterday kind of repeat my original sentiments, like, oh, ultimately I can find a place to hide. Well, when it all comes unhinged, there's not really going to be a place to hide. Now, I'm not necessarily saying like, dun dun dun, World War III. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I'm just saying that just because you leave the chaos that is your country or that is the United States doesn't mean that it gets better in other countries. So since I've been in this country where I am, I've been sick almost since day one. Because it's a newly opened, very, very developing country, there's just not really any doctors that I can go see. And to the converse of what it was when I was in the Middle East, I also don't have medical insurance here, so I can't go see a doctor. Of course, it's different for different people, but this is my experience here, and it's not comfortable for me. And certainly, I'm not bourgeois. I know that it's easy from the outside looking in to see someone living this lifestyle and think, oh, it's glamorous. But my first station overseas was in a village in China. And sometimes I went 3 or 4 days without speaking to anyone. And if you think that I'm bourgeois, please remember that I was adopted at birth and put out on the streets when I was 14 by my adopted family. So I definitely am not that. And 10 years military, blah, blah, blah. So, so I'm definitely not bourgeois, but I feel that I have paid my dues, and I don't want to go backwards. So, whereas the United States is not necessarily in the best situation right now, for me, it's probably the best situation that I can put myself in. So just remember, guys, the grass is not always greener on the other side, and money does not equal peace. It might equal temporary happiness, but it definitely doesn't equal peace. So again, please return to my old videos. What's the number one thing you should do when you're getting ready to go abroad? The number one thing, and the number two thing, and also what you shouldn't be coming abroad to do. Shouldn't be coming abroad to run away from things. So go back to the channel, click on the channel, and just go back and look at some of my videos about, you know, my perspective about these things. So it is my perspective, but I think it's good advice overall. What you should do if you're getting ready to come abroad, really evaluate your reasons for coming abroad and create, even though plans are fluid, create you a plan A and a plan B, because you may find come overseas, and I know a lot of contractors this has happened to. You may come overseas and find that you've been overseas for 2 decades and not have any life savings still, and be 50 or 60 and not have any real plan for transitioning back to the United States or for what you're going to do abroad. So this is just not the kind of position that you want to find yourself in. So just, you have to trust me on this. I don't want to see anyone find themselves in the position that I'm in. People say, "Oh, just go home." There's no home for some of us to go to. I don't have any family. I don't have a house in the United States. So there's no place for me to go to. And I had a kind of a tentative plan when I first came overseas, but obviously I didn't stick to it. So now I'm kind of regrouping a little bit later in life. So yes, this is one of those do as I say, don't do as I did. So anyways, trust me guys, the grass isn't always greener on the other side with the salaries dropping for educators in the Middle East. It is a totally different world for educators abroad. Do your due diligence, join some groups, talk to some people, and really do your research. The grass is not always greener on the other side, guys. Money does not equal peace. And until next time, Kamina the Koach wishing you love, joy, peace, and happiness. We'll see you next time.